Hi, welcome to part 3 of the Game Boy keyboard design. Let me give a little recap of what happened before and let me show you how I finally turned this from a CAD file into a 3D printed reality and what a headache that was. Let's start with the recap. Here's my initial sketch from when I first came up with the idea, with a little D-pad taken straight from the Game Boy's button layout. The overarching idea was to build a bridge between contemporary keyboards from when the Game Boy was new and sleek modern versions by using the design details of the Game Boy. Here's the first layout as a full-size keyboard, and that already looked pretty nice, with the blank keycaps that have their respective letters printed beneath them at a 30-degree angle. We found the correct font via fontsinuse.com. I quickly decided to use an existing Logitech wireless keyboard as a base for this build, so I chopped off the bits I didn't need and arranged the button layout accordingly. I then gave the rear some Game Boy details as well, and I built a little mock-up to test if I could print the font detailed enough on my 3D printer. And sure enough, with a 0.2mm nozzle, it worked like a charm. And that concluded part 1. I started part 2 with building a 3D model of the Logitech keyboard I wanted to use as a base and started building the CAD model around that. I added more and more details and went through some iterations, and it quickly turned into a well-rounded overall design. I printed another little test piece to check if pressing the buttons would work as intended, and sure enough, it did. But all this was the easy part. The hard part is still to come. So let's walk through the CAD file together. As you can see, the faceplate here is split up into 3 bands that I was able to print on my printer. And same goes for the back. That's also split up down these lines. And if you remember, the cartridge here is a little access hatch for the battery door of the actual Logitech keyboard in here. Let me hide the little rubber feet here. And I'll peel away all the layers here. You can see this is the 3 parts. And here you can see a little Easter egg. The on-off switch is a little Tetris block. Isn't that nice? I like that. Let's hide the keyboard, and you can see I connected all the buttons with some little wavy lines so they could move individually but hang together as one piece to have an easier assembly. That's basically it. You can hide these faceplates and show you the frame here. That's also built up of segments. And well, that's all there is to it. Oh well, I shouldn't say it like that. It was quite a journey to get here. And here's the aforementioned 3D printing headaches. Well, no project ever goes by without failed prints, but if they take 8 to 10 hours and they go overnight, you always lose one day. And sometimes it even said print finish, but clearly they weren't. And well, stuff lifted off the build plate, and no project ever goes by without a serving of spaghetti. It also didn't help that I thought I was a genius by discovering that I could actually fit a whole keyboard shell into my printer diagonally. I got a little too confident and overestimated the abilities of my printer. Because while it actually did print and finish, the quality wasn't good enough compared to my earlier test prints that I printed face down onto the build plate, which gave them a really nice textured finish. But then, finally, light at the end of the tunnel. I used a few hacks that I would like to share with you. To make the keycaps domed and shiny, I used some UV glue, my favorite glue by the way, now even more than before. I applied a few drops to the flat keycaps and let the surface tension of the glue create the dome. I'm really happy with that hack. It makes the keycaps look so much more like the original Game Boy keys. Look how shiny they are and how domey. I already knew that I could print the font on the faceplate with a 0.2mm nozzle. But printing the whole part with that would mean a 4-hour print for each of the 3 stripes. So I thought maybe I can print the font in blue with the 0.2mm nozzle and then switch it with the 0.1mm standard nozzle and start a new print with the gray filament. And what do you know? Well, now you know that that works. And it reduced print time for me to 1 hour for each of the 3 parts. The last hack isn't so much of a hack, but rather a feature that I had never used before. It's called fuzzy skin, and it basically introduces noise or jitter within limits that you can control to the lines that your printer lays down. I used it to try to match the sides of the prints to the textured faceplate. And here's how you can add that to your print. Under the Others tab, you can find special modes, and there's the fuzzy skin. These 2 values control how much your printer will jiggle away from the righteous path. For me, 0.2mm for both worked the best. And what I used to match the top surfaces is the Hilbert curve. I had never used that before. It creates a nice surface finish on top to match the sides. Find that under your Strength tab. I also used that for the rear parts that I couldn't lay down flat onto the build plate. Well, what would I do differently? Not too much actually. The domed keycaps work surprisingly well for typing, and maybe I would test a version that has dished keycaps and see if that makes a difference. And one more thing I think could be more pronounced is that rounded corner. That could maybe be, well, more rounded. But since this is constrained by the D-pad, that would mean I need to enlarge the whole perimeter of the device. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that would give it some more space, some more white space, as you would call it with text, and give it some more room to breathe, so to say, and make it less crammed. And the last thing I just plainly forgot is to put a freaking on-off mark on the on-off switch. I can never remember which is which, and the little LED in here only turns on when you're turning it on. It doesn't stay lit all the time. So, was this a silly idea? Yes. Does it look incredibly awesome? Also yes. And if you're thinking, Daniel, that's so awesome, I want one too. Well, I also want you to want one. So let me know in the comments or send me a message if you're interested in buying one. I'm in contact with 3D printing companies that might be able to produce these in a quality that's good enough for everyday use. Because, to be honest, this looks really nice, but at the end of the day, it's still a prototype that's still a bit rough around the edges, metaphorically and literally. So with all that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you who followed along on this journey to design this keyboard. I got so much great feedback after every video, and it's a joy to see that so many people are interested in these silly ideas. So once again, thanks for watching. Let me introduce you to veark, the sponsor of today's video. Based in Copenhagen, veark is a contemporary kitchenware company dedicated to developing honest and high-quality tools for everyday use. Follow the link in the description or go to veark.com and sign up for the newsletter to get 10% off your first order.